So not only did the Texans lose a key receiver for the entire season, but just when you thought they'd be a team to make a trade for a wideout due to injuries piling up, a surprise team made a move for one of the best remaining guys instead. This is a team that needed more help on defense than anything else, but okay. On top of that, we had a quarterback get benched after he tapped out on 3rd and goal because he needed some milk. So I've got to talk about all that and more as I dive into the insanity that was Week 8 of the 2024 season, right after... Alright, first up, Sunday was National Tight Ends Day, which is a floating holiday that takes place on every 4th Sunday of October. There's a holiday for everything these days, but tight ends all over the league celebrated like never before. There were 177 receptions by tight ends, which is a new single-day record for tight ends in NFL history. There were also 16 tight end touchdowns, which is a new National Tight Ends Day record, though that's a little less impressive considering the holiday has been around for like 5 years. One of those tight ends that was having an absolute field day, though, was Kyle Pitts. He only had 4 catches, but he made the most of them, getting wide open for this 36-yard touchdown in the first quarter, then breaking loose for this 49-yarder in the second quarter, though it was almost a forced fumble by Antoine Winfield Jr. Bucs tight end Cade Otton was feeling festive as well, being Baker's top target with both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out of the equation. He caught 9 passes for 81 yards and a couple tutties himself, though it wasn't enough as Kirk Cousins torched Tampa's secondary, going 23 of 29 for 276 yards and 4 touchdowns on the day, leading the Falcons to a 31-26 win over Tampa as they remain the top team in the NFC South. Kirk Cousins really seems to have the Bucs number because in 2 games played against them this season, he's combined for nearly 800 yards and 8 touchdowns through the air. That's insane. And with that win, the Falcons actually moved to 3-0 on the road, which is very impressive and the exact opposite of what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing right now. They are 0-4 at home after getting blown out by the Eagles on Sunday. Cincy couldn't do anything to stop the Eagles' run game as they rushed for 161 yards, with Saquon topping 100 for the 4th time this season. Meanwhile, the Bengals rushed for just 58 yards on a measly 2.9 per attempt. And with that loss, the Bengals are now 3-5 on the year, which is hilarious. If you're not a Bengals fan, thankfully, I'm not. The Eagles are hitting their stride as well. They've rattled off 3 straight wins and are now 5-2 on the year. And since we were just talking about the Bengals, let's stay in the AFC North to hone in on the Browns and Ravens game. This was probably the upset of the week, maybe even of the year, as Cleveland rallied behind Jameis Winston. He threw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns, including this 38-yard strike to Cedric Tillman that put the Browns on top 29-24 with under a minute to go. The Ravens did drive down the field, but the Browns defense held strong at the end, and they pulled off the upset over the Ravens, who were coming off of 5 straight victories and were 7.5-point favorites heading into the game. Let's be honest, though. I am 0% surprised that the Browns look better and are competitive with Jameis Winston at the helm. Deshaun Watson was performing at a historically bad level, and this is the spark that Cleveland needed, though, yes, it came at the cost of a season-ending injury to Deshaun Watson's Achilles, but still, he was performing bad. Jameis Winston, instant upgrade. The problem is it might be too little too late for Cleveland as they now sit at just 2-6 on the season. But hey, back to the Ravens before we move on here because they were so shook up by this loss to the Browns. They allowed the Browns to put up 29 points on them, and the Ravens defense this season is 7th worst in the NFL, allowing 26.1 points per game. So what do they do to remedy the solution or remedy the issues on defense? They trade for wide receiver Diontae Johnson from the Carolina Panthers. I'm kind of trolling here. You need defensive help. They get a receiver, though. He's a good addition to an already pretty powerful Ravens offense. You've got Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews for what that's worth, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Aguilar. You've got a lot of options over there, and now you add Diontae Johnson. As you have seen from teams who keep getting hit by injuries, you can never have too many valuable pieces on offense. So while I did troll there, I do think you need defensive help. Don't get me wrong if you're the Ravens, but they did get a nice playmaker in Diontae Johnson, and you don't really give up a lot to go get him either. You trade a 5th-round pick for their 6th-round pick. So you're basically moving back whatever it is, 15, 20 spots in the draft. You get Diontae Johnson, And it looks like the Carolina Panthers are going to be help paying for some of his salary as well. So the Ravens are making a move here, loading up as they really want to try and, do something in the playoffs. They've struggled. Lamar Jackson in particular has struggled in the playoffs. And they're trying to right their wrongs here after making it to the AFC Championship last year. And we will see what happens to an already powerful Ravens offense with the addition of Diontae Johnson. Another shocker was the Patriots and Jets game. It looked like the Jets were going to run away with this one when Drake Maye took a shot to the head in the second quarter and was ruled out with a concussion. I did really want to see him play a full game against Aaron Rodgers. That's the man who Drake Maye said is his GOAT, but the football gods had other plans. Apparently, they had planned for Jacoby Brissett to come in and lead multiple scoring drives, including the final one that ended with a Ramondre Stevenson touchdown that ultimately gave the Patriots the win. Just like Baltimore, the Jets were 7.5-point favorites on the road and ended up losing to a backup quarterback that led them on a game-winning drive. So, New York belly flops to a 2-6 record after losing 5 straight, even after trading for Davante Adams, even after getting Hassan Reddick back. It doesn't really matter. They are a train wreck right now. And here's a stat of all stats in this game. The Jets had 0 turnovers, held the Patriots to 247 yards on offense, and still lost. They are the first team to lose a game in which they did not turn the ball over and held their opponent under 250 yards since week 3 of 2012 when the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers lost to the Seahawks. But since then, teams had been 220-0 in those games until now. Davante Adams is probably stress-eating Taco Bell right at this very moment in his house, regretting being traded to the Jets in the first place, though I guess in fairness to him, the Raiders suck just as badly. But still, things have gone from bad to worse for this clown show of a team, and they've got a short week as they play the Texans on Thursday Night Football, so good freaking luck to you. Speaking of the Texans, they bounced back after last week's loss to the Packers and edged out the Colts 23-20 thanks to great performances from CJ Stroud and Joe Mixon. It was a big win for him as they got a little breathing room in the division race and are now 2 games ahead of the Colts thanks to 2 wins over them this season. However, the bad news is that Stefon Diggs went down with a non-contact injury late in the third quarter and was ruled out for the game. He's being evaluated for a knee injury. Don't have all the details as of when I'm recording this video. I don't want it to be serious, but more times than not, a non-contact injury like that is probably season-ending, and that would be a major blow for Houston if he is out for the year, as Nico Collins is still on IR with a hamstring injury. He's reportedly been progressing well and is on track to return as soon as Week 10, and the Texans might be in the running for Diontae Johnson, making a trade for him. Several teams could be in the mix for it, but with Diggs out and Nico Collins still recovering, the Texans could be making a push. Hey, futuristic Cole here. It has been announced since recording that video that Stefon Diggs tore his ACL, so he is officially out for the rest of the season, which is a really tough break for him. He was on a bit of a contract year after being traded to the Texans. They basically reworked his contract to where he would be a free agent next year, and he tore his ACL. So tough loss for the Texans indeed, something that we thought was going to happen with the non-contact injury nature of how Diggs went down, but it still sucks to see. And we'll see what the Texans do from here. They are not getting Diontae Johnson, by the way, because he's now with the Baltimore Ravens. Anyway, back to the game. Anthony Richardson proved once again that he's incapable of completing passes consistently as he finished the game 10 of 32, good God, for 175 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. 69 nice of those yards came on a busted coverage that allowed Josh Downs to score the easiest touchdown of his life. Other than that, he was highly inaccurate throughout the game, and he now has the lowest completion percentage in a season over the last 20 years, somehow even worse than Tim Tebow and Jamarcus Russell. There was also this weird moment in the third quarter where he took himself out of the game on a crucial 3rd and goal, though they were backed all the way up to the 23-yard line, so they probably weren't scoring anyway, but still, it was odd to see him ask to be subbed out, with everyone then wondering if he sustained some sort of an injury. But he came back in the next drive, and after the game, he said he was tired.
Man, tired. I ain't gonna lie. That was a lot of running right there that I did, and I don't think I was gonna be able to go that next play. So just told saying I just needed a break right there.
That's actually hilarious. What do you mean you're tired? Get back in the game. You're the starting quarterback. What the hell are we doing here? Someone get this man some Red Bull or something, because I was tired is actually an insane reason, but I digress. The Colts are definitely in a tricky place. They drafted Richardson 4th overall last year, and seems like he's the future for the franchise, but everybody knows that Joe Flacco most likely gives him the best chance to win games right now. And that's why a bombshell dropped this morning when it was announced they are going to be rolling with Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson right now, and he's going to spend some time on the bench. Adam Schefter said, per sources, coaches met this morning and made the seismic organizational decision to change QBs. I mean, the guy said he wanted some water, so he came out on 3rd and goal. You really have no choice. You lose the trust of your teammates. There's no way they can rally behind that. So I don't think this is a permanent move personally. I think Anthony Richardson will probably come back out and start at some point in time. But what are you supposed to do right now? You put their backs up against the wall when you told the media that you needed a little nap on the bench. So he's going to take some naps on the bench right now while Flacco comes in and tries to win them some games. And to be clear, this does not help the Colts with anything long term. Joe Flacco is almost 40 years old. He's not the solution here. So we'll see what happens as time goes on. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Do you agree with the benching of Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco, or nah, they should have kept rolling with him even though the man was a little tired? But hey, speaking of teams that are on the struggle bus, the Jaguars dropped to 2-6 on the season after losing to the Packers on a walk-off field goal. They also lost Christian Kirk to a broken collarbone, and he's expected to miss the rest of the season. Plus, Brian Thomas Jr., who has possibly been the best, or at least one of the best rookie receivers of the season, suffered a rib injury of sorts, and it was initially feared to have him potentially missing 2 to 4 weeks. But the MRI came back clean, with Doug Peterson saying Monday that Thomas is day-to-day with a contusion and could play this week. The Packers also had a concerning injury of their own, as Jordan Love went down early in the 3rd quarter. I initially thought it was his knee, just as he's recovering from that MCL, but it's a groin injury, and Malik Willis had to come in and finish the game. However, it looks like they avoided disaster, as it was reported yesterday. It's not a serious injury, but his status for Week 9 is up in the air at this point in time. As far as the game, though, Green Bay leaned on Josh Jacobs pretty heavily. He toted the rock 25 times for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Brandon McManus hitting the walk-off field goal for the 2nd week in a row. That's pretty crazy because he's only been a Packer for 2 weeks. With that, the Cheeseheads moved to 6-2, but we'll see if Jordan Love is able to play next week in a massive game against the Lions. Whoever wins that game will be the top dog in the NFC North for the time being. The Jags are already a sinking ship and are now torpedoing towards the ocean floor after dropping to 2-6, and they have a murderer's row for the next 4 games. Look at this. They play the Eagles, Vikings, Lions, and Texans. Well, nice knowing you, Dougie P. I'd be shocked if he's still around after their Week 12 bye, because good God, that schedule is brutal. Speaking of the Lions, they beat the ever-loving piss stains out of the Titans on Sunday, 52-14, in a game that Jared Goff threw for just 85 passing yards. I mean, he didn't really need to light it up, as 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles gave the Lions excellent field position on multiple drives. Plus, Khalif Raymond had a 64-yard punt return that he brought to the 22-yard line, and then he housed one for 90 yards in the 3rd quarter. It's actually insane. The Titans outgained the Lions by nearly 200 yards and won the time of possession battle by 10 minutes, but the 4 turnovers and special teams blunders made it impossible for them to get out of their own way. This team is an absolute train wreck right now. But hey, thanks for D-Hop. Speaking of the Chiefs, they remain the only undefeated team in the NFL after beating the Raiders in Vegas. They are undefeated in Vegas, by the way, including the win in Super Bowl 58. Travis Kelce went off for 90 yards and a touchdown on 10 catches in honor of National Tight Ends Day, scoring for the first time in 13 regular season games going back to last season. D-Hop didn't do a ton in his Chiefs debut, wasn't expected to as he had 2 days of practice, but he caught a couple of passes, including the 16-yarder in the 2nd quarter that made Patrick Mahomes the fastest quarterback to reach 30,000 career passing yards, doing so in just 103 games. He passed up Matt Stafford, who previously held the record, doing it in 109 games. The defense is still very elite. Spags is him, as they sacked Gardner Minshew 5 times on the day, making his life miserable. And if the defense wasn't a problem enough for teams, the Chiefs just traded a 2026 6th-round pick to the Patriots for edge rusher Joshua Uche. I don't know why teams keep trading with the Chiefs, especially the Patriots, who formerly were a dynasty, to help the current dynasty, but I do appreciate them helping KC out, as their hopefully well on their way to three-peating this season. Something else I don't understand is what in the hell Nathan Shepard was doing here on this play against the Chargers. I mean, it sure looks like he's trying to rip the ankle off of Justin Herbert. Some people think Shepard didn't realize Herbert got rid of the ball and he was continuing to try and make a tackle, but most people were extremely pissed off by this and thought it was a very dirty play here and want to see this man suspended. Shout out to Chargers center Bradley Bozeman, though, who came in and knocked him off of Herbert and got all up in his face about it as he stood up for his QB. The team definitely appreciated it, as did Jim Harbaugh, who awarded him a game ball afterwards, and it was pretty cool to see his teammates' reaction. Someone else who earned a game ball was the rookie Ladd McConkey, who had himself a breakout game, catching 6 passes for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, including this nasty 60-yarder in the third quarter. He made a tough contested grab, cut across the field, and raced into the end zone. The Chargers went on to win 26-8 as they moved to 4-3 on the year. The Saints have now dropped 6 straight games, good God, but Derek Carr has a chance to play next week, and he can't come back soon enough as Spencer Rattler actually got benched in the second half against LA. Now, a quarterback who did come back this week was Tua Tagovailoa. He returned for his first game since he suffered that concussion in week 2. Miami's offense was anemic without him and was actually dead last in scoring heading into this week, but Tua instantly injected some life into them as they took an early 10-point lead, scoring on their first 2 drives. Raheem Mostert's second rushing touchdown of the game put them up 27-18 in the fourth, but James Conner punched this one in for Arizona to bring them within 2. Miami was forced to punt with 5 minutes left in the game, and the Cardinals pieced together a 13-play drive, draining the entire clock as Chad Ryland hit the 34-yard field goal to give them the comeback win. This is his second week in a row hitting a walk-off field goal, as he drilled one last week against the Chargers. So obviously, Miami would have liked to come back away with the win, but they've got to feel somewhat good at least having Tua back and knowing they can score points again on offense. It's definitely going to be an uphill climb for the Dolphins, though, as they are now 2-5 on the season. The Cardinals are actually first in the NFC West with a 4-4 record. Yeah, that's right. It's anyone's division at this point. Both the Niners and the Seahawks are 4-4 as well, and then the Rams aren't far behind at 3-4. Staying in that division, the Seattle Seahawks got curb stomped by the Bills on Sunday, 31-10 in front of their home fans. They've now lost 4 of their last 5, and they're probably losing so much because they don't even know who their opponent is. A couple of teammates, Derek Hall and Jaron Reed, got into a heated argument on the field, with Bills players even contemplating breaking it up, which is pretty funny. Then the fight continued on the sideline, and this was all because Hall got flagged for a late hit on Josh Allen, and the veteran Reed was putting the young man in his place. At least that's what I thought was going on, but anytime you see teammates fighting each other, you know things are not going too well. They are going well for the Bills, however, as they've gotten back on track after they won their first 3 games, then dropped 2 straight, and have now won another 3 in a row. Josh Allen is currently tied with Lamar Jackson as the MVP favorite right now, on DraftKings at least, and he turned in another great performance as he went 24 of 34 for 283 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw his first INT of the season, though, which for Josh Allen is pretty freaking impressive to make it almost halfway through the season with no interceptions. You want to know what else is impressive? The Hail Mary at the end of the Bears and Commanders game. I'm sure most of you have seen the play by now, but let's back it up to the possession before. The Bears had come back after being down 12-0 in the second half, and this Roschon Johnson touchdown plus a 2-point conversion to Cole Kmet put Chicago up 15-12 with only 25 seconds remaining. The Commanders had just 1 timeout left, but they executed perfectly as Jaden Daniels hit Zach Ertz for a quick 11-yard gain before burning that last timeout. Then with the Bears playing prevent defense, Terry McLaurin was able to haul in this pass along the sideline for 13 yards with 2 seconds left. Then we all know what happens next. Jaden Daniels scrambles around, buying 12-ish seconds of time, that is a lot, before he uncorked the pass that floated in the air, got tipped up before landing perfectly into the awaiting hands of Noah Brown for the walk-off touchdown. An absolutely insane ending, with the fans, of course, going bonkers, as well as players and even head coach Dan Quinn, who couldn't believe it. Neither could the Bears players, who were sitting on the field in shock afterwards. One player in particular was extra shook up, and that was Tyrique Stevenson, a fan who was at the game, caught this on video. During the play, while Jayden Daniels is literally scrambling around, Stevenson has his back to the play. He's facing the crowd, back to everything going on like an idiot. He was pointing and mocking Commanders fans in the crowd. And what's freaking hilarious is that it appears Stevenson is the one who tipped the ball. Check it out from both angles. He comes flying in late, and it certainly looks like that's his hand that makes contact with the ball before flipping back to Noah Brown. You can't even make this stuff up. Instant karma at its finest, and you truly do love to see it. Tyrique actually posted on X after the game saying to Chicago and teammates, "My apologies for lack of awareness and focus. The game ain't over until zeros hit the clock. Can't take anything for granted. Notes taken. Improvement will happen. Bear down." Well, everybody was basically roasting this man in the comments, and one of my personal favorites was from Mitty is Happy, who said, "Don't apologize. You gave us one of the funniest images in NFL history." And it's true. This play is going to forever live on as one of the greatest things I have ever seen. You really can't come up with a better ending to this game, and it's pretty wild because some thought that Jayden Daniels wouldn't play in this game as he was ruled or labeled a game-time decision with a rib injury. And not only did he play, but he helped deliver an iconic moment in what is 100% the play of the year so far. Aaron Rodgers' Hail Mary is probably a close second. Now, before we get to the Cowboys and Niners game, I really don't even want to talk about this game because A, I hate the Broncos, and B, nobody cares about the Panthers. But I feel like I have to in honor of National Tight Ends Day, and Adam Trotman made this glorious one-handed catch in the end zone that, if not for the Commanders' Hail Mary, would have been a contestant for Play of the Week. Bo Nix had probably what was his best game as a pro, throwing for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns with no picks as the Broncos scored 28 unanswered points after Carolina got on the board first. The Panthers also got a garbage time touchdown at the end, but this one was all Broncos as they won 28-14 and moved to 5-3 on the year. Bryce Young got the start for Andy Dalton, who injured his thumb last week, and he actually looked like a competent quarterback at times against one of the best defenses in the league. He was 24 of 37 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns, but did throw 2 picks. All right, now for the Sunday night game, the Cowboys headed to San Francisco to take on the 49ers in a little primetime showdown. Dallas had the lead going into halftime up 10-6 thanks to an Ezekiel Elliott touchdown in the second quarter, and that's when the Cowboys proceeded to cowboy, with the Niners scoring 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives of the second half. The second one was set up by Dak Prescott, who threw his second pick of the game as Lenore made a phenomenal leaping grab here. Nice one. And George Kittle caught this short touchdown pass on the other end. Kittle was partying hard for the holiday I've talked way too much about in this video, as he finished the game with 128 yards and that 1 touchdown on 6 receptions. Now, the Cowboys did make things interesting in the fourth quarter as Dak connected with CeeDee Lamb for 2 touchdowns, both of which he was somehow wide open for. And after that second touchdown, the Niners went 3 and out, and the Cowboys actually had a chance to go win the game as they possessed the ball down 30-24 with 3 minutes remaining. However, the Niners defense closed the door and turned them over on downs as Isaac Guerendo sealed the game with this first down run here. So yet another tough loss for the Cowboys, I'm so sad, who are now 3-4 on the year and are sitting at 3rd in the NFC East. Dak Prescott became the first Cowboys quarterback, by the way, in 32 years to throw 2 or more interceptions in 3 straight games. Not a great look from the man they just made the highest paid player in NFL history. Dallas is a mess right now. They're 22nd in points scored on offense and 31st in points allowed on defense. Geriatric Jones needs to make some drastic changes, and I think one that he really needs to make, but is definitely not gonna, is firing himself. Moving from one tragic organization to an even more tragic organization in the New York Giants, who are sadly on Monday Night Football. They traveled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, who had won 21 straight home games on Monday Night Football. Wild stat. The first half of this game was gross. Fast forward because each team had 3 field goals to make it 9-9 at the half. But thankfully, Calvin Austin housed this punt in the third to put the game's first touchdown on the board. It probably should have been called back due to a missed call there on the punter. Defender ran into his leg. That's a flag, a personal foul, I believe. But oh well. Austin found that touchdown to be pretty fun, so why not score another one? That's why he caught this 29-yarder from Russ Wilson to put Pittsburgh up 23-9. Tyrone Tracy had himself a day for the G-men, though. He had 145 yards on the ground in this 45-yard touchdown run before he sadly left the game to be evaluated for a concussion in the fourth quarter. After that score, the Giants then attempted a 2-point conversion by lining up like this. I mean, what on earth is this? Believe it or not, it actually could have worked if anybody at all would have tried to block over there on the left side. But either way, that was freaking embarrassing. Chris Boswell and Greg Joseph then traded a couple more field goals to make it 26-18. This is where things got crazy. The Steelers were looking to burn some clock, but Bobby Okereke punched the ball out from Russell Wilson and got the recovery. The end of this play was absolutely hilarious, with George Pickens doing his best WWE impression to launch himself on top of the pile. Absolutely fantastic stuff. New York was looking to tie it up, but for some reason, they left their tackle on an island with TJ Watt. Nice job. And he strip-sacked Daniel Jones, and he recovered it, giving the ball back to Pittsburgh. This man is a freaking monster and might be the best defender in football. He had 2 sacks on the night, including that strip sack, and while the Giants did force Pittsburgh to punt, it really didn't matter in the end. Daniel Jones made some nice throws, driving them down the field, but ended up doing what he does best and sailed this pass over his running back's head as it was picked off by Beanie Bishop to seal the 22nd straight home win on Monday Night Football for the Steelers. They head to 6-2 on the year so far. And Russell Wilson has this offense looking electric, playing another great game. He went 20 of 28 for 278 yards and a touchdown. The Steelers are rolling with Russ right now and are first in the AFC North after the Ravens lost to Cleveland. And there you have it, another crazy week of football in the books. Let me know your biggest takeaways from these surprising moments to expected moments to the upsets, all from week 8 of the season. Leave them in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.